Hello and welcome back to another episode of Math with Dr. War. Today we have another math short video and we're going to be looking at the laws of exponents. This is a high emphasis topic on the TASC test that you have to be familiar with. So the first law is we call them laws and sometimes we call them rules. So I go back and forth with the words. So the first law is the product rule. So if you have a base raised to an exponent and you're multiplying by a similar base raised to a different exponent, the rule is you keep your base and you add your exponents. The next rule is the power rule, and that's if you have a base raised to an exponent and then that is then raised to another exponent. So as my students say, power to the power. So if you have that, you keep your base and you would multiply your exponents. So if you have a base raised to an exponent and you're dividing by a matching base raised to a different exponent, you keep your base and you subtract your exponents. Then we have the negative rule. So if you have a base raised to a negative exponent, to make it positive, you write the reciprocal. So you have 1 over a, and then your exponent becomes positive. So it's like you're flipping your negative exponent. So if I wrote this as a fraction, I will have to put it over 1. So notice I flipped. So the 1 became the numerator, and then the a to the negative m went to the denominator, but notice that the exponent is not negative anymore. So when you flip it, it becomes positive. And then the last one is if you have a base raised to a 0 exponent, your answer would be 1. You need to know these 5 rules in order to solve these problems. So let's take a look at our 2 examples we have here. The first one says which expression is equivalent to negative 4x squared, and then that's raised to the third power. So we have negative 4x to the second power, and all of that is raised to the third power. So notice you have a power to a power, which means we're going to be using the power rule. Now, if you notice inside, you have 2 terms. So both terms have to be raised to the third power. That means the negative 4 has to be raised to the third power, and then the x squared must be raised to the third power. Now, since negative 4 is an integer, you're going to have to do the math on that. And that basically means that negative 4 is going to multiply itself 3 times. Now, since your test is multiple choice, and suppose you couldn't use the calculator here, look at your answers. Now, if you take negative 4 and multiply it by negative 4 and multiply it by negative 4, because it's an odd number of negatives, your answer will be negative. But then you have to figure out, well, what will be your answer? Clearly, it's not going to be 12 because if you do 4 times 4, that gives you 16. So your answer is not 1 or 2. So notice I didn't even have to get a calculator. This is going to be 64 because it's certainly it's not 12. Now here we have a base raised to an exponent, raised to another exponent. And remember what we're going to do here? We're going to multiply. And when you multiply 2 times 3, you get 6. So your answer is negative 64x to the 6th power. So our answer is number 3. Let's look at our second problem, which says which expression is equivalent to, we have 5 to the negative 2 raised to the power of 5, and then we're multiplying by 5 to the 4. So we have 2 things going on here. Now this has a power to a power. So we're again using the power rule, and then we're also multiplying. So then you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do first? Are you going to multiply first, or are you going to use the power rule first? Well, just like PEMDAS, exponents would be first because this will be considered exponents. So remember here, we keep our base 5 and we're going to multiply. Yep, we're going to multiply negative 2 times 5. So this is actually 5 to the negative 10 because a negative times a positive gives you a negative. So you have 5 to the negative 10, and now we're going to multiply that by 5 to the 4. Now when you're multiplying, what does that rule say? That rule says that if your bases match, and the 5 here is your base, okay? It's not like here with this -4. So here is our base, so we're going to keep that 5. And now we're going to have to add, because when you're multiplying, the rule states keep your base and add your exponents. We're going to have to add. Now remember, when you're adding your integers, when the signs are different, you actually subtract them. So you're going to get a 6, and you keep the sign of the larger number, so that's -10. Now, suppose you're on the TASC test and you're like, you couldn't remember like your negative rule. I tell my students, you get here, look at your answers, your exponent is a 6. I only see 1 6 here, so I'm going to choose that, even though I might not know how in the world they got this. But I'm going to tell you how they got that. Remember what I said? Now we have the negative rule. Remember, we don't want any negative exponents. We're going to have to flip this. So if you think of this as a fraction over 1, if we flip this, the 1 now becomes the numerator. This becomes the denominator and now becomes positive. So your answer is 1 over 5, 6. So notice with this question here, we had to go about using 3 rules. First started off with the power rule. Then we went to the product rule. And after that, we had to use the negative rule. I hope this math short was helpful. As always, I'm going to put 5 questions in the description for you to try, because I'm trying to make these math shorts interactive. So there are only 5 questions based on the laws of exponents. Hope these shorts are helpful. Good luck on your TASC exam. And remember, please like, share, and subscribe.